Good morning, tubers. What you're looking at is an engine I bought from a guy, and he was trying to set this engine up to go on a Honda 200X. He was trying to do the Honda 200X automatic clutch conversion. Now, it kind of fell through with him because he was having trouble getting the starter to fit here, to getting the engine to fit on. This is a 1985 200X, and when I bought it, there was a starter here. It had the, I don't know, 200M motor on it. So the guy who had this before me successfully did the transplant he was trying to do and did not succeed at. I had to pull the engine with the starter off of this because the guy who did do the conversion ran it without an air cleaner, and he buffed the cylinder wall and completely killed the valves. I mean, the engine was just sandblasted inside. So I put that engine on there and I got it running, and quite honestly, I haven't gotten as far with this project as I've wanted to either, and you guys will probably see it come back up again. So the guy who owned this engine had a whole bunch of stuff, some 300EX stuff and 250X stuff. And he just wanted to get rid of it all before winter, and he needed money, so he gave me a nice package deal. That's how I got this. So there's all the backstory. Now what I want to do is actually bring this back to life. It appears as if the starter turns, and it appears as if, you see that gear in the back? That's the starter clutch. It seems that that's alive. I mean, it needs a wipeout and a little bit of a cleanup. Right, the shifter shaft appears to be pretty nice. The other side of the engine's intact, right? It all looks halfway decent. From what I could tell of the guy who had this engine, he was one of these people who actually kind of knew what he was doing. And though it appears as if somebody was in here, you could see they're a little scraped. This all looks solid, so I don't think anybody was in there. I like it better when I see the little cap on here, but anyhow, so what we're going to do today is we're going to attempt to bring this back to life, and let me show you the donor engine. So the donor engine came off a Honda 200ES Big Red, so to speak. You could see the reverse shaft drive and so forth, and it was involved in a serious fire. It actually melted. You can see this case is melted, and the cover over the top of it was melted. This was a junkyard deal, and I almost killed myself when I originally got it. The top end of the motor was still on it, and I recycled that someplace else. Anyway, when I hauled it over to the desk, and yeah, I want to buy this, the guy was like, why? And I've managed to once again pull the top end, which was used elsewhere. It seemed to be in nice shape, so now it's time to use the rest of it. Particularly, it doesn't look like anybody was in here. I've kind of loosened things up a little bit for the sake of the video, but it doesn't look like anybody was in here, and I need the gears and this cover and the basket and so forth. The shifter looks to be in nice shape too, so we're going to tag all that stuff and put it on the other one. I'm going to set up the camera. I'm actually going to take this apart on video, then we'll carry the parts down to the other one and see if they'll go on before I pick up and move the other engine. These things weigh quite a bit, about 75 pounds. So they're a haul. Well, let's start tearing things apart. Just making sure I'm recording. That way I don't get to the end and discover I never turned it on. First of all, the starter. Normally there's a plate that goes from here to there. It's not there. So that came out pretty easily, but unfortunately it is seized. So this starter is scrap. We're going to take the basket off next. I already loosened this, 14 millimeters. Right? Not bad. Let's see if oh, that came off easy. They normally don't come off quite that easy. You have to kind of ease them off all the way around. 8 millimeters, many times. Make sure you find all of them. This one likes to hide, and that one likes to hide. If you have a gasket over it, it covers this one. And this one, just from not paying attention, you can miss it. As you're taking this apart, remember there are gears in there, and when you slide it out, sometimes they have washers that keep the gears from wearing the case. So pay attention as you're taking things apart that you don't lose anything. So this may be appearing to go real smoothly. It's because I pre-loosened things. Right, those, that. I think that's all those. The shifter's going to be in your way, so you want to get that out of the way. Once you remove, it's 10 millimeters. Once you remove the bolts, it's also helpful if you kind of spread the seam a little bit. Oh, that wasn't bad. See what the camera's looking at. Okay, to get this cover off, there's a little tab here that you could tap on, and a little tab here. Depending on how loose this is, it depends. And this little shift indicator, right, there's a little arrow thing that slips on here. This stays with the motor, so to speak. So as you're trying to get the cover off, the cover might bind up on this. So just be a little careful. Use something flat-ended. Right, once again, now dumping all the gears on the ground is considered poor form. So try not to do that. All right. So I was talking about sometimes they put washers here, spacers, so to speak. So you just want to be careful. Just heard something clink. Yeah, this guy. Right. So you just want to make sure you get them back where they belong. Yeah, I think that goes there. Or here. I think it goes on this guy. So anyway, things look pretty good. The one problem though is the wires got barbecued here. You really don't want to just bolt this on and fire it up, and the reason why you don't want to do that is you're generating electricity and you have a bunch of short circuits. So I am going to have to kind of take this apart and see what's going up here, see what's going on in here before it could be started. So, right, the first gear. Okay, here's one of those little washer things that I mentioned, spacer, we could call them. So I'm cognizant of one there. This has to come out completely. You want to be careful as you're taking this apart also. Right, I almost dropped the washer. Because you don't... Yeah, this looks like... No, maybe this is where the washer is. I'm going to have to look it over closer. You could always go through a parts list. And last but not least, let's get watching that you don't drop any washers in. Right, see the washer on that? Hopefully I'm showing it to you. And there's one here too. Yeah, the clutch feels good on this one too, right? It goes easily in that direction, but doesn't go in this direction. It's also interesting because with the cover on it was bound up, but now it's not. So, oh, while the starter was stuck, no, that shouldn't make any difference. It should have been able to go in one direction. Anyway, let's see if this stuff is going to fit on the other engine. It may not. Once again, this is a shaft drive, the other one is a chain drive. If you take out one bolt, it's right there, this inner cover comes off, and you can see it is sealed by an O-ring. So I've cleaned this all out. I'm just going to squirt a little oil. I use diesel oil for this, so I'm just going to squirt a little oil to make sure this gear is happy. I don't think I can reach anything else. I think I'm going to have to get the rest of it from the top, right? I'll get some oil into the cylinder before I attempt to turn it over. I'll pop these off, get a little oil onto the cam too, right? That kind of stuff just doesn't hurt, and it might help an awful lot. The first cover is back on. I put the bolt through. I oiled the gasket. They had an O-ring on it. It's a strange thing. I used to work on a lot of pumps, rebuilding them. And if you didn't oil the gasket, you would put the pump together and you'd find it leaking. You take it apart, you just oil that O-ring, put it back together again, and it would stop leaking. A lot of people would ask, well, if you're leaking oil, aren't you oiling the O-ring? I guess, but it doesn't seem to work that way. By the way, when you're putting this cover on, make sure you seat this properly. So, next thing I did, this is the cover that goes on after the gears go in. And generally speaking, you've heard me speak of the gasket material that you apply. I kind of consider it death, because as you push this on, it's very easy to end up with all that polymer floating around in your engine, which obviously could cause death to your engine. That's why I call it death. So I put it on carefully. You know, as I put it on, I have a tendency to tap, tap, tap to make sure it kind of sticks to the lower plate pretty well. You guys could also see that I've cut these wires back and isolated them. So now it's a matter of getting the gears in. The way you take them out and do that carefully. I'm not going to be able to get the camera in there because I'm going to kind of have to work that one in and then the other. So anyway, put them back in the way you took them out, and as I said, be careful about losing those spacers. The gears are all in, they're turning properly, so that's all set up. I put oil and you can see it's dripping. I got to tilt the engine back a little bit so that I could get the gasket surfaces clear. Once again, I gummed up the gasket. Now it's just a matter of putting it together, tapping it on, and hoping for the best. Getting to be time to start this thing, and I'm up at top dead center. See the little line there up on top. So the valves seem tight. I'm just trying to get it around. Yeah, that's so. I'm thinking the valves are a little too tight. I'm going to loosen them up, straighten them around. No use in starting this thing or attempting to start it, and it won't because the valves are too tight. I'm glad we checked this. We got a whole heap of trouble up here. First of all, the springs are off. I mean, theoretically, you can lock it in the delayed position, but you see how that's all scraped up? He didn't leave enough gap. So looks like I'm going to put a new advancer on here. I also got to check this. This might be dead. They normally don't like to get rubbed like that. Anyway, let's troubleshoot this. So those two come out. That lets the plate come off. Then a 10 millimeter, and we could take it apart. This is at top dead center. Right there's top dead center, and once again, the exhaust is not opened. The intake just feels too tight. I'm gonna have to do a little PM up here also. So pulse generator's off. Looks okay. We'll put the meter to that. This, I don't know, maybe it's not damaged much, but the springs are missing. See, it's supposed to be a spring that goes from there to there, and it ain't there. So that's not a good sign. It does feel like the cam pin is there. That doesn't seem to be missing. Yeah, this is coming apart. Yeah, it's also not supposed to be that stiff. It's supposed to be cleaner than that. Cleaner as in you can move things easier. That seized on there. So anyway, let me get it loose. The new advancer is on. The valves are adjusted. Just a matter of putting covers on, getting some oil into it, and I think we're going to be doing a start. Obviously, you need a carburetor on my portable CDI box, but yeah, this thing, hopefully it's running in a matter of minutes. Before I put the spark plug in or anything, let's give it a quick turnover. I like it. Let's do a quick compression test on this before we get too much further along. At 90 she'll start. So it looks like I'm good for 120. This thing should run up there. Let's do a little spark check here. Power on. It's sparking without even turning. I think you guys saw that. Turn that off. And yeah, it's a matter of just putting a little carburation to it and we should be running. So, I think it's ready to start the Frankenstein monster engine. It is part 200E 200S. It is probably part 200M, part 200S. Carburetor is China clone, so it's quite the Frankenstein here. Let's see if it'll start. I'm using what I call my better portable CDI. It has the 4-pin 12-volt guy. I'm not going to use any starting fluid. Let's see how she does. You could see I do have a little bit of an exhaust system. I put an exhaust pipe on it. I don't want it to run too fast because nothing's holding it. Right? After it runs for a minute, it should even out. Actually, it sounds great. I don't know how much of a smoker it's going to be. Really hasn't been run. I don't have a gas tank on it. No, I don't think it's going to be a might be a little bit of a smoker. Gotta love the pop. Not bad, huh? Not bad for a Frankenstein motor. Something we put together with junk floating around the property. Everything from junkyard motors to motors I got a deal on. Everything from 200ES motors to 200M motors to clone parts. I mean, this truly is a wreck of a motor. It's been sitting outside the block, and the rest of it's been sitting outside for a couple of years now, more or less in this position. Well, maybe it was over there for a while. Then it was over here for a while. Down in the driveway for a couple of years. Anyway, it started. It runs nice. And I want to thank you all for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. Please remember, keep your feet down, your heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. You really don't know how many you're going to get, so get out and have some fun.